Alright, so before we go ahead and get into this, I'll be looking over that way quite a bit. Fortunately, there's been an issue with printer this week due to a storm earlier, so I'll be using a second monitor to read things off. Uh, so for this week, main accomplishments for this reporting period, main page, we set a background gradient and color. We've added basic instructions. We've resized the line chart. We've added a top 10 chart, a bottom 10 chart. We wrote min, max, mean percentage for year and metric chosen. And we created a second states page and linked this page to the states page and the states page back to here. As you can see, there's the gradient in the background. If we go ahead and submit this to look at poverty, we can see this main chart has been slightly changed, and this top 10 and bottom 10 having been added. And down here, a statistical breakdown of minimum, maximum, mean. Here we can see minimum was Mississippi, 18. Oh, sorry. I got that backwards. Maximum was over here, Mississippi, 18.7% poverty rate. Minimum over here, New Hampshire, at a 7% poverty rate. The national average for the year 2020 was 11.68%. And now going to individual state view, the new function. Let's go ahead and select all of that and look at Alaska first because it's default value as it's the in alphabetical order. We've got this gives us a breakdown over the selected period to show poverty, HNI, annual unemployment, annual SNAP for specific state. We can get the values here. For instance, the value date of the maximum and value maximum for HNI was 1.24 in 2019. Unemployment maximum value recorded was 8.3 in 2020. Annual poverty maximum recorded was 11.4 in 2014. Things like that. We can also see there's a breakdown here that explains how correlation coefficients work. And with Alaska, we can see some interesting things. Most of Alaska's statistics are rather weakly correlated. And interestingly enough, unemployment and poverty have a very weak negative correlation in Alaska. And the negative correlation, upon investigating it, turns out to be due to Alaska. Most of the work there is seasonal work. Very high value, high danger seasonal work, like about 6 weeks of crab fishing each year, where for the rest of the year they're unemployed, but they make enough money to keep themselves out of poverty. Additionally, we discovered by looking at these statistics was apparently Alaska has something called the Permanent Fund, where they pay out a set amount of oil industry profits to permanent residents of the state. For instance, I believe it was last year where each household was paid about $3,000 per person in the household. So, pretty good deal for Alaskans. And of course, if we go ahead and look at, say, Mississippi, we'd see results more like the expected, like strong correlations between poverty and SNAP benefits and H&I and unemployment. Also, let's see here. What else do we have to show for this week? Not a whole lot else specifically for this week. I mean, as you can tell, there has been a little bit of polishing. For instance, here. But yeah, a little bit of polishing, definitely needs more polish. Uh, as far as items, accomplishments planned but not completed. Um, one of the big things is we planned to get a GitHub repository going. Fortunately, we kind of put that off. I've instead been using, basically just been making several different save states with various different names for testing, and then consolidating them at the end to decrease clutter, which is a much faster way of doing things. Probably not necessarily the best way to do things, though. Let's see, what else? Other big thing that hasn't been accomplished was the chloropeth. Choropleth. Um, I had planned to get that done, but unfortunately have not been able to get that working quite yet. We also need to do a projection system, and the New York Times API, as you may have noticed, is missing in this current version. There were some issues getting it integrated, so it's currently been cut for now. It'll hopefully make a comeback if we can get it working more smoothly. Other big things. Let's see. Major impacts to milestones were a lot of effort getting the code working and getting the Flask app and HTML file to pass parameters into the system correctly. There was quite a bit of trouble there. Coming weeks will require a lot of extended hours of work on this. Accomplishments planned for the next reporting period is to get projection of future needs. One thing noticed is that there might be some statistical issues caused with future needs projection due to the start of COVID being included. So, of course, COVID, as we know, year of 2020, huge spikes in unemployment and all that, that may or may not impact projections. Content, let's see. Big thing, like I said, chloropeth, really hoping to get that working. New risks identified. The main risk at this point is time. It's becoming increasingly apparent that this might not be able to get to the level I want it at within the time frame of the Capstone project. At the very least, I may cut back on some of the scope to focus it down on making something much smaller in scope, but significantly more polished. What I have now is the core functionality of what we want to show. It's not perfectly how we wanted to show it, but it is the core functionality, so we may trim it back quite a bit and focus on polishing it. For instance, uh, focusing on turning this into a much prettier thing. Just thinking of doing a double gradient with a body here. Um, that might it the design of course will be an issue. Also needing to clean up this down here. So as we can see, this doesn't really show it's just a whole bunch of junk when there's no information entered, but when there is information entered, we see that it cleans up to that. We need to go ahead and fix that, give it default values so it stays pretty and polished. Um, I don't think. I think that's the bulk of the most important things. The rest of the report you can read at your leisure. It's more so just writing out the specifics and particularities more expanded upon. So that will conclude the report for this week.